What if I told you that in 1967, deep in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania, scientists discovered a fountain that shouldn't exist? A fountain that flows with water from nowhere, water that doesn't match anything on Earth, and water that changed everyone who drank from it in ways that still haunt the scientific community today. This is the story of the Izvorul Fără Origine, the source without origin, and why the Romanian government has spent over 50 years trying to bury what they found there. By the end of this story, you'll understand why some discoveries are meant to stay hidden, and why the last living witness to these events still wakes up screaming every night. In the autumn of 1967, Dr. Mikhail Ceaușescu, a distant cousin of Romania's dictator, was leading a geological survey team through the remote valleys of the Carpathian Mountains. They were searching for mineral deposits that could fuel Romania's industrial ambitions. What they found instead would challenge everything we thought we knew about water, about our planet, and about the price of human curiosity. The team had been hiking for 6 days through increasingly treacherous terrain when they stumbled upon something impossible. Hidden in a grove of ancient oak trees, some of which appeared to be over 1,000 years old, was a stone fountain. Not ruins of a fountain, not the remnants of some medieval structure, but a fountain actively flowing with crystal clear water. The craftsmanship was unlike anything they had seen. The stone wasn't local limestone or granite, but something that seemed to shift color depending on the angle of light. Sometimes it appeared black as obsidian, other times it gleamed with an almost metallic silver sheen. The fountain itself was carved with symbols that didn't match any known language or historical period. But here's where the story takes its first dark turn. Dr. Ceaușescu's team included Maria Volkov, a hydrologist who had spent 15 years studying water sources across Eastern Europe. The moment she saw this fountain, she knew something was fundamentally wrong. The water was flowing upward from the base of the fountain, defying gravity, forming an impossible spiral that seemed to hang in the air for several seconds before falling back down. Maria immediately began taking measurements. The water temperature was exactly 37 degrees Celsius, human body temperature, regardless of the ambient air temperature. When she tested the flow rate, she discovered another impossibility. The fountain was producing approximately 200 liters of water per hour, but there was no visible drainage system. No overflow, no accumulation of water around the base. The water simply appeared and then vanished. The team set up camp nearby, and Maria began collecting samples for analysis. This is where the story becomes truly disturbing. The first test she ran was isotopic analysis to determine the water's origin. Every water source on Earth has a unique isotopic signature that tells us where it came from, whether it's from glacial melt, ocean evaporation, or groundwater. Maria's results showed something that shouldn't exist. The isotopic signature was completely neutral, as if this water had never been part of Earth's water cycle. Dr. Ceaușescu sent the samples to laboratories in Bucharest, Moscow, and even managed to smuggle some to colleagues in Western Europe. Every single lab came back with the same impossible results. This water contained trace elements that didn't exist in Earth's crust, in our oceans, or in our atmosphere. More disturbing still, the water seemed to be molecularly perfect, with no bacteria, no minerals, no impurities of any kind. On the 4th night of their stay, something happened that would change everything. Gheorghe Popescu, the team's youngest geologist, was unable to sleep due to what he described as a constant humming sound emanating from the fountain. Around 3 in the morning, driven by curiosity and exhaustion, he approached the fountain and cupped his hands to drink from it. According to Maria's journal, which was later found in the Romanian State Archives, Gheorghe's transformation began. Immediately, within minutes of drinking the water, his eyes began to change color, shifting from brown to a pale, almost translucent blue. He claimed he could suddenly see things that weren't there, shadows moving in the forest, patterns in the stone that revealed the fountain's true purpose. But Gheorghe's changes weren't just visual. Maria documented that he began speaking in languages none of them recognized, languages that seemed to predate any known human civilization. More terrifying still, when they played recordings of his speech to linguists back in Bucharest. Several of them suffered what could only be described as psychological breaks, claiming the sounds were unlocking memories they had never lived. Dr. Ceausescu made the decision to evacuate the site immediately, but Gheorghe refused to leave. He claimed the fountain was calling to him, that he could hear voices of people who had found this place throughout history. People who had drunk from the water and discovered truths about reality that human minds weren't meant to comprehend. The team left Gheorghe behind, a decision that haunted them for the rest of their lives. When they returned 3 days later with military support, they found him sitting beside the fountain, his body perfectly preserved but his mind completely gone. He was alive, breathing, but he stared straight ahead with those pale blue eyes, occasionally muttering in those impossible languages. Here's what makes this story truly chilling. The military team that retrieved Gheorghe included a medic who documented his condition. Gheorghe's body showed no signs of dehydration, malnutrition, or exposure, despite having been in the wilderness for 3 days. His cellular structure appeared to be in perfect condition, as if the aging process had stopped entirely. Blood tests revealed that his blood had taken on some of the same impossible characteristics as the fountain water, with trace elements that shouldn't exist on Earth. The Romanian government classified everything about the izvorul, ihi, origini. Immediately, Dr. Ceausescu's team was disbanded, their research confiscated, and they were sworn to secrecy under threat of imprisonment. The site was sealed off, and according to declassified documents that surfaced in the 1990s, it remains under military guard to this day. But the story doesn't end there. Maria Volkov, the hydrologist, managed to keep a single vial of the fountain water hidden from the authorities. For 20 years, she conducted secret experiments on this sample in her home laboratory. Her private journals, published posthumously by her daughter in 1993, revealed discoveries that explain why the government was so desperate to bury this story. The water Maria discovered wasn't just from somewhere else on Earth. Spectral analyses suggested it might not be from Earth at all. The molecular structure contained isotopes that could only form under gravitational conditions different from our planet. The water appeared to be from somewhere with a different relationship to time itself, which might explain why those who drank it seemed to stop aging. More disturbing were Maria's experiments on plant and animal tissue exposed to the water. Plants grew at impossible rates, but developed mutations that followed no known genetic patterns. Mice, given small amounts of the water, lived 3 times longer than normal, but developed behavioral changes that Maria described as otherworldly. Intelligence paired with complete madness. In her final journal entry, written just days before her death from a sudden heart attack in 1989, Maria wrote something that still sends chills down the spines of those who have read it. I understand now why the fountain exists, and why we were never meant to find it. It's not a source of water, it's a doorway, and something on the other side has been waiting for someone to open it. What happened to Gheorghe Popescu is perhaps the most terrifying part of this entire story. According to nurses at the psychiatric facility where he was held, he never spoke again in any recognizable human language. However, he would occasionally draw pictures, always the same image, the fountain, but surrounded by figures that appeared to be human but wrong in ways that defied description. In 1973, 6 years after drinking from the fountain, Gheorghe died, but his death defied medical explanation. His body simply stopped functioning all at once, as if someone had turned off a switch. The autopsy revealed that his organs were in perfect condition, his brain showed no signs of disease or trauma, and his blood still contained those impossible trace elements. The most chilling detail came from Dr. Alexandru Radu, the psychiatrist who had been treating Gheorghe for those 6 years. In a letter found among his papers after his death, Dr. Radu wrote that in Gheorghe's final moments, his eyes returned to their original brown color, and he spoke clearly in Romanian for the first time since drinking from the fountain. His last words were, "They're coming through now, the door is open." 3 days after Gheorghe's death, every staff member at the psychiatric facility reported the same recurring nightmare. They dreamed of standing beside a stone fountain in a forest, hearing voices calling to them in languages that predated human speech, and feeling an overwhelming urge to drink from waters that promised knowledge beyond human comprehension. Dr. Radu himself disappeared 2 weeks later. His car was found abandoned near the Carpathian Mountains, close to where the fountain was believed to be located. He was never seen again, but local villagers reported seeing someone matching his description wandering the mountains, always moving toward the sealed military zone. His eyes described as pale blue and translucent. Today, according to sources within the Romanian government, who spoke on condition of anonymity, the site of the Izvorul Fara Origini remains under constant surveillance. Satellite imagery, when available, shows a permanent military installation surrounding what appears to be a grove of ancient oak trees. The fountain itself is allegedly sealed beneath a concrete structure, but sensors around the area continue to detect impossible readings, gravitational anomalies, electromagnetic disturbances, and acoustic signatures that don't match any known natural phenomena. Perhaps most disturbing are the reports from military personnel stationed at the site. Multiple soldiers have requested transfers, claiming they can hear voices calling to them from beneath the concrete seal. The turnover rate at this installation is reportedly the highest in the Romanian military, and psychological evaluations of departing personnel often reveal the same recurring elements: dreams of impossible waters, visions of figures from other worlds, and an overwhelming sense that something is waiting just beneath their feet. The few scientists who have been allowed to study the sealed site report readings that challenge our understanding of physics itself. The area around the fountain shows signs of temporal distortion, with atomic clocks running differently depending on their proximity to the sealed fountain. Ground-penetrating radar reveals structures beneath the fountain that extend impossibly deep into the earth, forming patterns that seem to follow mathematical principles unknown to human science. In 2019, a leaked document from the Romanian Ministry of Defense revealed that the concrete seal over the fountain had developed cracks. Repair teams sent to reinforce the structure reported that water was beginning to seep through, water that matched the impossible characteristics of the original fountain. 3 of the 5 repair team members were hospitalized after brief exposure to this seepage, displaying the same symptoms as Gheorghe Popescu, changing eye color, speaking in unknown languages, and claiming to see things that weren't there. The document also revealed that similar fountains had been reported in other locations around the world, deep in the Amazon rainforest, beneath the ice of Antarctica, and in caves in Tibet that local populations had considered sacred and forbidden for centuries. Each site was immediately classified and placed under international protection, suggesting that the Izvorul Fara Origini was not unique, but part of something much larger and more terrifying. Dr. Maria Volkov's daughter, Alina, has spent her entire adult life researching her mother's work and trying to understand what the fountain really was. In interviews, she has suggested that her mother's final theory was the most disturbing of all, that the fountains weren't sources of alien water, but rather breaches in reality itself, places where the barriers between our world and somewhere else had worn thin. According to Alina, her mother believed that throughout human history, certain individuals had found these fountains and drunk from them, gaining knowledge and abilities that marked them as prophets, oracles, or madmen, depending on the culture that encountered them. The common thread was always the same: they returned, changed. Speaking of realities beyond human comprehension, and warning of something that was coming, the story of the Izvorul Fara Origini forces us to confront an uncomfortable possibility: that our understanding of reality is far more limited than we dare to admit, and that some discoveries are kept secret not because they're valuable, but because they're dangerous. The fountain that flowed with water from nowhere might have been offering us a glimpse of truths we're not ready to face, knowledge that comes at a price no human should have to pay. As you go about your life, drinking water without a second thought, remember Gheorghe Popescu, who sought knowledge and found something that destroyed his humanity while leaving his body intact. Remember Dr. Maria Volkov, who spent 20 years trying to understand what she had discovered and died believing she had opened a door that should have remained closed forever. And remember that somewhere in the Carpathian Mountains, beneath tons of concrete and under constant guard, something waits. Something that has been calling to human beings for centuries, offering impossible water to anyone brave or foolish enough to drink. The question isn't whether these fountains exist, but whether we're ready for what might happen if the seals finally break and that otherworldly water begins to flow freely once again. The fountain that flowed with water from nowhere may have been sealed away, but the knowledge of its existence spreads like ripples in a pond, touching minds and changing them in ways we're only beginning to understand. And perhaps that was always the point. Perhaps we were never meant to find the fountain. Perhaps the fountain was always meant to find us. Sweet dreams.